you know he's on top. Million subs, he never gonna flop. Out of Chicago, where the streets don't sleep. Betting on games, making cash real deep. Crystal ball for sports, he knows the lines. He's a sports aficionado, the money he finds. From football to basketball, he's always on point. Predicting winners never disappoints. He's got that hustle, that Chicago vibe. Making moves on the streets, cash on the side. With E, you know it's always a bet. He's the king of the game, never forget.
Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports show for January 28th. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. Absolutely loaded episode for you today. First timer, really excited to pick his brain about how he looks at bets, his thoughts about the AFC and NFC championship game, and what Super Bowl bets he has made. Pat from Pat's Picks AI on social media. He's this week's guest, and Gino will have his horse racing bet of the day from Gulfstream Park. But before getting into all that, I'd like to say thank you to the sponsor of the show, Prop Hex. If you're not using Prop Hex, download the app, use promo code ETOFT21. That way they know old Uncle Rico sent you. Now, let's see what Gino has cooking for us over at Gulfstream Park.
We have a best bet for this week coming at Gulfstream Park on Thursday. We're going to look at the mobile version of the Daily Racing Form past performances here. I'm going to move to race number 8 on Thursday. So Thursday, January 30th. And we're looking at the number 8, Beauty Reigns. She's 9-2 on the morning line, but I just don't think she's going to be that price. If she's anything over like 5-2, that's going to be a very fair price. Career debut was good. And then she came back and she lost to a very nice horse named Muhima. She drew towards the outside and she just didn't really get an aggressive ride that day. So I'm expecting a much better effort from the number 8, Beauty Reigns. That's going to be on Thursday, Gulfstream Park, race number 8, the number 8, Beauty Reigns. Best of luck this week as everybody gets ready for the big game coming in a few weeks. Get locked in with all your props and make sure to follow along with Eric.
Make sure to give my boy Gino a follow at It's Me, Gino B, on social media. I will be on his podcast, not this week, but next week, previewing the Super Bowl. Now, let's bring this week's special guest on, my boy from the East Coast, Pat from Pat's Picks AI. Pat, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me here. Excited to chat about these NFL games.
It was a really interesting weekend. We have a question from Matt in the chat. Are the Bills ever going to get past the Chiefs
in the playoffs? Yeah, I mean, I think they have their number. I think Josh Allen, I'm hoping one of these days he gets to the big game. I think he deserves it. I think he's had such a great career, and he keeps having these unbelievable seasons and just meets his kryptonite in the playoffs. But they gotta improve the defense. It kind of starts with that. They can't have Josh going out there trying to be the hero every single time. They do have to get him some help. And you see the Chiefs, they're kind of clicking on all cylinders, and Mahomes has a lot of help out there. So rooting for Josh, and I'd love to see it.
They had $70 million in dead cap space, and they made it this far. That's pretty remarkable. Obviously, you hit the nail on the head. Defensively, they have no one that can play man coverage. They look like lost kids out there trying to cover those wide receivers. I think they need to add some wide receiver weapons too. You can't. Shakir's great. Cooper came in. Basically, was just a glorified rotational piece. Coleman doesn't really have all the route tree, and Mac Hollins is just a field stretcher. So weapon-wise, it doesn't have much. Cook looked great, though. I'll give it up for Cook. Okay, here we go. Looking ahead, what is a sleeper team that could make a run next season?
Yeah, I mean, first that comes to mind is definitely the Bears after getting Ben Johnson. Everyone was hyped on them this year. They clearly have the weapons, and they have the quarterback that can hopefully turn around after what happened this year. But I think Ben will kind of get them in the right direction there.
I live in the Chicagoland area, and honestly, that is my worst fear. Yeah. I grew up in Michigan, okay? I love my Lions, and the Bears being good would be my worst fear because I'd have to hear all the time. Matt chimes in. I like you, Pat. Bear down. All right. Can the Lions make a run next season with all the coaches they lost?
Yeah, I'm worried about the Lions for sure. More so probably Goff. I don't know if Goff is going to be able to take them to the promised land without Ben Johnson, but yeah, I mean, they should be good, but I don't really see how they're going to be to the level. It seemed like this was their year and they potentially let it slide. So
I think that last year was their year.
yeah.
When you just kind of look back at it, I mean, they were up, 24-7 at half?
Yeah.
I do think losing Glenn, though, is addition by subtraction. I wasn't a big Aaron Glenn fan. I think losing him is addition by subtraction. Then, okay, here we go. What do the Colts do at the quarterback position?
Who? I feel like you got to give Richardson one more year and give Shane Steichen one more year, but I'm definitely getting worried about it. I think you have to kind of almost admit defeat with him as a passer and try to adapt the offense to make him a focal point as a runner, but I'm not sure.
It's so let's say you're Chris Ballard and the Vikings let Darnold walk. Would you take a flyer at Darnold for $10 million a year?
I don't know. Honestly, probably not.
Would you rather roll with Richardson or Darnold?
I'd rather roll with Richardson for one more year. I think you just gotta see what happens for one more year.
I'm not the biggest Sam Darnold guy at all.
Yeah.
Gino, who I do a lot of content with, he absolutely loves him. Gino's a big USC guy. I'm just not a big guy with him.
Yeah.
I would probably run with Richardson too, but we need to see some growth. I've never seen a quarterback tap himself out before. That's the thing that kind of is a red light to me, him tapping himself out.
But yeah, Darnold's got no potential left. I think Kevin O'Connell squeezed every last ounce of it he could out of him. And there's just, there's at least some hypothetical ceiling with Richardson if you can figure it out.
How about the Chargers if they add a wide receiver?
I think the Chargers are fine. I mean, they already have Herbert. They have great coaching. I think they impressed me more this year than I was expecting them to. So I think they can keep building off that. They're going to be, what they are. They're going to be a ground and pound team. They're going to play good defense. They're going to be well coached, and they're going to have a quarterback that can execute the plays. I think a running back or a wide receiver would both help, obviously. Lad's a beast, though.
Offensive line is great.
Yeah.
But doesn't Lad strike you that someone's he's someone that is going to get hurt a lot?
Maybe. Injuries are tough to predict.
I just don't know. Quentin Johnson can't catch. Lad kind of seems to me just an underneath guy. I thought he had a great first season, but
yeah,
I don't know if his size, you can depend on that every single week. Let's jump into it. Let's look back at the AFC and NFC games. Obviously, let's start off with the NFC. We have the Commanders and the Eagles. Just tell me your thoughts about the game.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really take too much new away from this game. I think both teams kind of are who we thought they were. The better team won this game. The big takeaway really is the takeaways. The Commanders went down 0-3 on the turnover battle, and they were all pretty bad fumbles. They were all pretty demoralizing. It's just really hard to win an NFL game losing that battle. I think it was the division week, the week before, where literally all four teams that had more yards lost the game because they lost the turnover battle. So you got to give credit to the Eagles and Hurts because they protected the ball. I think 0 turnovers so far in the playoffs versus 9 or so for their opponents. And that's going to win you games. It stinks for Jaden Daniels because it felt like he was kind of executing like he has been all season. That first drive was, just a thing of beauty. He was just going down there, getting dink and dunk passes like they wanted to do against this defense. And I thought it was pretty questionable that Dan Quinn doesn't go for the 4th down call there at the end. I think it was two already they had done on that drive. And to me, it just, I don't know, it just felt off brand from what they've been trying to be the whole playoffs, trying to, play with house money and just go for it. And you're playing the Eagles, you got to put up points. So taking a 3 there almost felt like it was a bit of a sigh of relief for the Eagles. And sure enough, first play, like what happens? Saquon goes 60 yards. And I feel like after that, they kind of just big energy shift really after that. And the Commanders needed someone other than Jaden to step up. And, I think it was the next drive, Dynamic Brown's just running around trying to get extra yards. He fumbles, Eckler fumbles, McNichol fumbles, kind of just these unimportant guys trying to make an extra play. And then you're just giving the Eagles playing right into their hand exactly where they want to be. They want to be playing with the lead. They want to just be playing good defense and running the ball. And, they dominated up front like they always do. They definitely have some of the best trenches in football, which helps them get to where they, inevitably did in the Super Bowl. And, just very impressed by the Eagles overall, especially the defense. Obviously, Vic Fangio's got them playing unbelievable right now. And those cornerbacks, you can't stop talking about them. Like, I don't know how you let them get both of those guys in the draft added to Darius Slay. It's a pretty stacked defense. And I'm always kind of a Jalen Hurts skeptic, but he really did play well. I wasn't exactly sure what we'd get out of him on the knee, but he was able to make some good passes, and he does what he needs to do to get the job done.
Cool, Kev. I appreciate you, my man. Thanks for tuning in. So I guess our Butler bet is not looking too hot based on my boy, let's make some money, just said. My takeaways are this. You hit the nail on the head when you talked about it. I didn't understand that first drive. They got all the way down to the Eagles 19. They were 2 for 2 on 4th down. It's like 4th and 2. Why are you taking the 3 points? Like, your brand all year has been going for it, and they've been great. I mean, they're obviously due for some 4th down regression, but not this year. This year it's clicking. Why not just roll the dice there? You're at almost a 7-point dog. You're moving the ball at will. You're averaging over 6 yards a play that drive. Just go for it. I didn't really understand that. Now, maybe this is just me being bitter because I had Eckler over 23.5 receiving yards. But if you would have told me he had 7 targets and 5 receptions, I think I'm hitting that total with ease.
Yeah.
He had 17 goddamn yards. 17 goddamn yards on 7 targets and 5 receptions. First half ending was just a complete disaster because they had that fumble right after the touchdown. They're able to get that touchdown. They just were never able to get any momentum and then withstand it. They just were constantly giving momentum back to the Eagles. It was worrisome to me how easy Ertz was having it one-on-one against Blankenship, though. Definitely something to keep in mind for next game against Kelsey. Ertz had 16 targets, 11 receptions for $104. Pretty good numbers.
Yeah.
Fangio's defense, only 350 yards to the Commanders, 4.5 yards a play. That's a pretty good effort for how good this offense has been looking. When we look at the Commanders as a big whole, though, going into next year, they have Terry McLaurin, who you're a fantasy guy like I am. I think he's insanely underrated for what he's able to do. Insanely underrated. I think he's a great alpha. But you mentioned how they have these like second tier guys. They need a wide receiver number 2. They need someone that can take some pressure off them, someone reliable, because Brown, old man Jamison Crowder, those guys just aren't it. They need to attack that wide receiver 2. I have a name for you. Tell me what you think. He's going to be a free agent. I think you can get him on a cheap. Elijah Moore.
Yeah. I mean, I think mostly anyone you get who's a pretty decent football player, Jaden's going to do well with. So I think you just got to bring in a few guys, see who clicks. And I think that's a great option because you don't want to be spend and bank on that. They got other areas to improve, namely the defense. But if you can just get one or two weapons to improve that, I think they can do it on the cheap.
You get Elijah Moore coming in there.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge. And you look at the production he had with Winston. Now you give him Daniels. I think that would be a home run. I also don't think Brian Robinson is the guy.
No. Yeah, we saw that
look at it,
really tail off quickly.
Averaged only 43 yards per game in the playoffs, 11 for 36 against the Eagles. They need to address that running back position this year in the draft, insanely deep. Wouldn't surprise me to take one in the 4th round.
Yep.
You mentioned Hurts. All this guy does is win. Like 70% of his games, you look at it since he's taken over in the NFL. Wild card made the Super Bowl. Wild card made the Super Bowl. It's just insane. This guy, does he have holes? Yeah, but he does a great job of just putting his team in position to win week in and week out. I am a little worried about the Eagles' offensive line. Johnson, Dickerson, Jordans, or is that how you pronounce the center?
Yeah.
All got banged up that game.
Yeah.
That's definitely something to monitor. And, we're going to talk about him during our bets. Dallas Goedert, he's emerging kind of as the focal point of this offensive attack, leading them in targets and receptions that game. So real quickly, if you're the GM of the Commanders, first move is?
I mean, I think you got to address the defense, probably look for a cornerback. I would not be that worried about the offense. I think you can address a lot of that in the draft. And, offensive line potentially as well. Like you have what is appearing to be a franchise quarterback. You need to protect him and you need to make sure you invest in the offensive line. They really played above the level that their talent might have indicated this year, but they were a pretty bad unit talent wise. And then Cosme goes out, like that, it kind of just derailed them. They had no chance against the Eagles. They really, I think they really got to bolster that as well.
Agree 100%. No running backs to support Daniels. I'm looking at it right now. Here are the list of free agent running backs: Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Jeff Wilson, AJ Dillon, Nick Chubb, Javonte Williams, Alexander Madison, J.K. Dobbins. That's
draft.
That's they. I mean, Kareem Hunt, but he's old. Cam Akers. I would just definitely go with the draft. That I think that's definitely the best play. The more I think about it, the more I really like Elijah Moore there, though.
Yeah.
I think Elijah Moore is going to be someone in this offseason who's going to attract some people. Now let's shift our attention over to the Bills, breaking all of America's heart, not getting it done, forcing us to put up with the Chiefs for one more Super Bowl.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts here about this game?
I mean, I think my biggest takeaway just in general is really just the continuity of this team and like the fact that you look at the last 6 years, they made 5 out of 6 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. And they've had the same head coach, the same defensive play caller, the same special teams coach, Dave Tobe, who really doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. Like you saw against both the Texans and the Bills, they put up big returns that impacted the game. They always have good special teams preparation. And just like the ability of them to continue to retain these guys is kind of crazy. Like you see what happens to the Lions. They lose all their coaches after one good year. And it feels like an organization that everyone's bought into the mission. You obviously have Mahomes and Kelsey there as well. But I think just having that continuity year after year after year, they know these teams, they know how to beat Josh Allen. They're able to throw different wrinkles at him. I think I saw Spags is the only defensive coordinator with 4 more Super Bowl rings, and he had a great game against the Bills. Like they stopped that tush push that they run to perfection. I think there were 3 different times. They knew exactly what they were going to do, and they had a plan for it. And then the final play of the game when Josh somehow gets it up to Dalton Kincaid, who somehow drops the ball, like is just an unbelievable blitz by Spags. He got three guys just completely untouched on 4th down in the most important game, just running straight at Josh and just confused him out of that. So I think coaching is just really important for this team. And, you know, we all know Andy Reid. You see the things he's able to do with his playbook on offense. Like the majority of the year this year, the Chiefs didn't have to use much of that. They were kind of just coasting through the regular season. And you could see that he's not afraid to kind of make tweaks. And, you know, they come out against the Bills and they're just running all these run pass options, and it's working to perfection. And I think one of the things that impressed me the most out of him is he'll notice something, call it, and it works, and he immediately will go back to it like later in the quarter. I think it was, you know, they had the 4th down they called in their own territory, which not many coaches are going to do. And Andy doesn't typically do that, but he coaches different in the playoffs. And, you know, he breaks out the RPO to Mahomes. He pretty much had 2 receivers open if he wanted them, and he runs it. And then later on, they call the exact same play. He gets a touchdown on it. And then, you know, similarly, you know, you see the same thing that happened in the Super Bowl, right? When they were down at halftime, they made certain adjustments. They tried that little Andy Reid play with Kadarius Toney. It works. And then they just run it right back again, and it works again. And I think he just has a knack for knowing what's going to work in certain situations, which is why I don't think he really hesitated on that 4th and 1 in their own territory. You just go for it because he knew they were going to get it. And I think, you know, just seeing how well Mahomes plays in the playoffs as well. I think there was a lot of talk this year about Mahomes' stats and the Chiefs aren't that good. And time in and time out, it comes down to the moments that matter in the 4th quarter, the games that matter in the playoffs, and you just see him elevate his game every single time. And I think we're at the point where we have enough sample size of data to really just trust that he actually has that dog in him, as people would say, and he just is able to elevate in those situations. And, you know, I don't think too many people had a doubt in their mind what was going to happen when he's driving in the 4th quarter there. Like, they're going to go down, score, and put themselves in a chance to win this game. And then, you know, their defense comes through as well. So it's really just a product that they've, you know, refined after a handful of years because they've had so much continuity. And I think that just really helps them.
I play Wicked by Ice Cube every year the Bills get eliminated. Yeah, Shakir was wide open on that left side of the field when he went to Dalton. And that play hurts because I had Dalton Kincaid over 33.5 yards receiving. That would have hit my total. Absolutely kills me that didn't get home. My takeaways. Number one, I'll just get to it. The Kincaid drop seemed like a tough catch, but when I rewatched the all 22, it is insane how wide open he is. He is literally wide open. I know with the winds in Arrowhead, that's a tough catch, but he still needs to calm down with that. Also, I love James Cook. I think he is a phenomenal running back, but I need someone to explain to me why he's pushing Josh Allen on the football. Why is 5'10", what is it, 205 out of Green Bay, James Cook, the one pushing Josh Allen? And not to poke my boy Kincaid, if you rewatch that tush push, Kincaid slipped. His ass is on the ground. Like, it's a bad play from Kincaid at some critical situation. Also, there was a flag on that play.
Yeah, it was picked up.
And like, I don't know, like what was called. Was there actually a flag? Because I think Nance said that it was just an error on the sidelines. There was no flag. The controversial spot. Now, look, I couldn't tell. And full transparency, I had a Bills 9-1 to win the Super Bowl. I literally couldn't tell if it was a first down or not. But the two things I didn't like about this is, number one, you had one official, at 1 yard line, another official half a yard back. What was the spot they went with there? Because they never really said what spot they're going with. And I think it brings up the discussion we need to have. And what's your opinion? Why don't they put a chip in the football? So that way you just know where it is.
Yeah, I heard something that they might, but again, it's like the unpredictability of some of these plays is so crazy, and that's kind of where the call on the field stands thing happens. And if they had used the other officials' ruling, it probably would have been a first down, because you just truly can't tell. I think Chris Jones made the biggest play on that play because he was just standing there doing nothing, blocking the camera view, and no one can really know whether he got it or not.
Job security. Because they can't rig it. Shakir played great, played well. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Coleman hasn't learned the route tree yet. Very limited with the routes he can run. Hollins lacks versatility as well. Glorified field stretcher. Had a great game, though. Mari Cooper, just a pure rotational piece at this part of his career. They need someone else there to help Shakir and everything.
They do.
No one in the secondary can play man coverage. McDermott plays man coverage all the time. They have literally none of their DBs can play man coverage. So in the draft, that's something they really need to address. I don't understand the usage of Cook. You give Ty Johnson, when they're driving at the end of the game, Ty Johnson out there. Cook had 13 carries for 85 yards. There's still 3:31 left. You can still establish the run and everything. 13 for 85, 6.5 yards per carry. The second best performance by a back against the Chiefs this whole year. And he only had 13 carries.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand why they weren't running him more. You mentioned how good Reed and his game plans were. Kelsey was a pure decoy. Instead of lining him up in the middle, they're lining him up on the outside, drawing more attention there. Bills already struggled defending the middle of the field. We saw great games from Worthy in the middle, Juju Smith-Schuster in the middle. Hollywood Brown was actually lined up in the slot and not on the outside, and him and Mahomes definitely looked to have some sort of connection. Yeah. So props to Reed. Just totally out X and O's McDermott on the defensive end. 100% rig call from Emily. They need Devontae Adams. Yeah, Devontae Adams would be
They need someone.
Guy. They definitely need someone else there.
Or they need Kincaid to be the guy they drafted him to be.
Oh, dude, just
I'm
so disappointed in Kincaid, man. Just that 33 and a freaking half, dude. Oh my God. So let's get over to the bets. But before we look at what Pat and I are betting, we have to look back at how Ty and I did last week. Disappointing 2-4 last week, with Ty hitting the Commanders and Eagles over 47.5, but losing Scary Terry over 69.5 and Kelsey anytime touchdown plus 130. Old Uncle Rico hit A.J. Brown over 59.5, but lost Dalton Kincaid over 33.5 and Travis Kelsey over 69.5, bringing the record for the show to 65, 45, and 1. So disappointing week last week. Hopefully we can turn the corner here. Yes, only 20 games up. I know a semi-decent sports facts, but hopefully we can have a winning week here. So let's jump right into it. And I'm not going to lie, my man. You know, you're my boy and everything. I have the Eagles 15-1, and seeing you betting this is just breaking my heart.
Yeah, I mean, you have to do it. I think at this point, who do you trust more than Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo to win a big game like this? All year, I've kind of been higher on these AFC teams than the NFC teams. I've had the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens as my top three teams, and then the Lions and the Eagles after that. And I just think it comes down to coaching. I think it comes down to the fact that we've seen this matchup and there's familiarity there. And we saw Andy Reid and the Chiefs make the adjustments needed against Sirianni, and they didn't do what they needed in that game. And Jalen Hurts probably played one of the best games of his career there. So I think the Eagles are definitely a better team coming into this one. They have a much better defense. They have the Saquon Barkley factor that is probably the ultimate wild card to it, because if Saquon can keep going and the Chiefs can't find a way to slow him down, they're toast. So I really think a lot of it's going to hinge on Jalen and whether he can put together a winning performance, because I think he's going to need it. I think they're going to need AJ Brown in this. They're going to need Goddard. They're going to need a lot of these guys to have good games that they haven't been as consistent with throughout the regular season. But there's so much that points to the Chiefs. Mahomes is 8-0 in the playoffs with a spread of a field goal or less. He's 20-6 in the regular season. He just knows how to win games in the fourth quarter. And another fun trend I found was one I saw. There's been 4 head coaching rematches in the Super Bowl. All 4 were won by the same coach. So they went 2-0 in those rematches every single time. And then, I think Mahomes versus the Vic Fangio defense is something I'd like to talk about too, because way back when it was Mahomes and Tyreek and they were hitting all these deep plays, he was kind of the one who put the blueprint in play that a lot of teams started using to try and limit Mahomes and try and make him have to dink and dunk. And he effectively changed his whole game to, I think he was one of the, the lowest ADOT passers of the season this year, because he is just happy to take what they're going to give him. And if you're going to make him go, 5 yards downfield, he's happy to do it, and he'll take what you're going to give him. And I actually think their weapons are slightly better this year than people are giving them credit for. You look at the last Super Bowl, it was Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. And now you have Xavier Worthy and Marquise Brown. And, both of those guys, I think, are big upgrades. Xavier, I think he's just continuing to get better every single game. We already know he has the game-breaking speed, but you see him actually making some football plays out there that are less about just straight line speed. And he's really just an ultimate chess piece for Andy. He's finding ways to move him around, finding ways to, confuse the defenses with him. So I just think the Chiefs are a little bit more well-balanced. The Eagles probably have the better roster, but, some of these playoff trends with Mahomes and just the way he elevates his game, I don't really think you can properly quantify and kind of make comparisons for. So it's going to be a good one, I think. And I think the Eagles should have a good matchup in the trenches as well. And if they can somehow limit the explosive plays for Saquon, I think the Chiefs will be able to get this done. Saquon's been really good in the playoffs, but you do strip away his 3 massive explosive plays, and he hasn't been, I think it's been like 3.5 or 4 yards per carry on everything else. So I think Spags will have a good enough game plan to kind of limit them. And, when it comes down to the fourth quarter, if I need Jalen Hurts to win me a drive or Patrick Mahomes to win me a drive, you know who I'm taking every time. So I'll be on the Chiefs in this one for sure.
Our boy Bryce from the Onion Sports Pod Chiefs. Cool Cub is asking, what do you guys think Kelsey getting 30 plus yards this game? Yeah.
Yes.
We talked about it a little bit earlier. Blankenship looked like a lost puppy when going up against Ertz. They definitely are going to have to look to do something in the middle with Kelsey. And then I agree with 100 everything you said. I don't think this Chiefs team gets credit for exactly how good they are compared to last year's team. And then also the other good thing you said is when you look at everything, better team, Eagles. I think we can assume that better team, the Eagles. But the two most important things, coaching staff, Chiefs, quarterback, Chiefs.
Yep.
Now you talked about Spags. In all these recycling coaches that always get hired, why doesn't anyone ever give him a second shot?
I don't know. I don't even know if he wants to leave at this point.
Yeah, it's just kind of weird how he just never gets a shot. My first bet, and look, I have certain bets I always take. Give me under 24.5 for the first half. First half unders the last 19 Super Bowls, 12-6-1, 67%. When the total is 24.5 or more, it is 8-1 to the under. Andy Reid coached teams in the Super Bowl 3-1 to the under. This year for the first half under, Eagles 10-7 to it. This is one of those game dynamics plays. High pressured Super Bowl environments, teams are obviously cautious to avoid turnovers and mistakes to dig them that early hole in the game. Offense typically a little bit more conservative early, focusing on establishing the run and kind of seeing like what the coverages are going to be. Then we look at the defenses. Both these defenses are elite. Eagles, top graded defense per PFF. Chiefs graded number 2 per PFF. DVOA, Eagles are first, Chiefs are 12th. Both these DCs are elite in X's and O's, capable of creating schemes to slow down opposing offenses early in the game. The combination of trends, the defense, and just kind of, I think, how players are going to be nervous. They're not going to want to look to get behind. It makes me love this under. So I'm on the under 24.5 points for the first half. And you know what? Honestly, I will probably bet this depending on what the number is. What do you think about Jalen Carter 2+ sacks?
That's a good bet. I actually took that last week against the Commanders. It didn't hit, but yeah, the Chiefs on the interior are a little shaken up other than Humphrey because they moved their best player, Tooney, out to left tackle, which is insane in itself that they ended up just moving their guard out to tackle, and he's doing well. But I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for Carter to wreak havoc. And
I love Carter. And you know what? I'm a Lions fan. I will say till I die, if they would have drafted Jalen Carter instead of Jahmyr Gibbs, they probably would have won the Super Bowl last year. That would be my take. Next bet. And you are going to the tight end.
Yep. And I know we both like this one, and it seems like everyone does because this number is shooting up. So this is definitely one you want to get in before the Super Bowl comes, because I feel like this is going to just keep on going. It's the number 1 defense to target, and I think everything's just aligning perfectly with the way the Eagles are using Goddard and the way he's playing. He's really in the playoffs probably been their number 1 target. Like AJ Brown has been a little bit hidden, and Goddard's been consistent. He's there for Jalen Hurts. He's going to go to him. He uses him as a security blanket when he needs him, and we've seen him out there not just catching balls, but breaking tackles and moving, the chains and getting himself actual yards. But it's just a matchup thing too. Like the Chiefs defense has really strong outside cornerbacks, and you, as the Eagles game plan, like you want to attack the middle of the field. And I don't think this is going to be a type of game where you can just sit back and run the ball like the Eagles really wish they could, because you have Mahomes and Reed on the other side, and they're going to have to be aggressive. They're going to have to pass. Like I said, Jalen Hurts is going to have a good game, and he did look really solid last week throwing the ball, and he has a great connection with Goddard. So I'll definitely be taking this, and I pulled up a little bit of data that I like that supports it too. Is he's a big playoff guy. Like in his career, I think it's been 9 straight playoff games. He's had 4+ catches in all of them. He's consistent, averaging 57 over that span. And last time against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, he had 7 targets, 6 catches, 70 yards, same exact defensive coordinator. So they should be able to really just attack that middle of the defense. And the thing that really jumped out to me when I was combing through the Washington data was he had 8 targets in that game. All 8 of those targets were on first reads. And I think that's really important because Hurts is one of those guys that is typically just progressing through 1 or 2 reads. They really only have a pecking order of 3 receivers, and then his third reads tuck the ball and run. So the fact that they're intentionally going to Goddard in these situations in the last game, I think he realistically could be number 1 in that pecking order against the Chiefs. So I'm playing this line for sure because I think it's going to keep going up to probably closer to 55.
All right, from our boy, Jalen is going to get 1 sack in the first half, and in the fourth quarter, he'll get his second, and you'll start cheering, and then there will be the flag. Hashtag the check cleared. I'm never betting Butler again. Outscored 43-27 in the second half. Yeah, I think Goddard is going to be in line for a huge game. I think he's been the guy this playoff. He's gone over this total every single one. When you look at his production, he's just been the guy. And just because Hurts really isn't throwing it downfield that much right now in this playoffs. My second bet, and you know what? We're getting grimy here. getting grimy. Give me Saquon Barkley under 116.5 rushing yards. Let's look at this Chiefs defense first. They allowed 106.7 rushing yards per game, ninth fewest in the league. Regular season, no running back rushed for over 85 yards against them. I'll put you on the spot. Do you care to guess who the running back was that had the highest total this year against them? And it is the most random running back in the world.
J.K. Dobbins?
No. Of course, I'm McDermott from the Raiders.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Most random one in the world. In the playoffs, the most they allowed was 88 to Joe Mixon in the divisional round. When we look at their defensive metrics, 9th DVOA against the run, 10th PFF against the run. Now, when we look at Barkley against PFF graded top 11 defenses, he only averaged 73 yards per game. Against DVOA top 15 defenses, only averaged 101 yards per game. So when he's playing those better defenses, he's not having that production. The Eagles' strategy, obviously, get the ball to Barkley, don't turn the ball over. Spags is going to come out there, and that's going to be the defensive plan. I think he's going to load the box, and he's going to force Hurts to get the ball out of his hands. Now, when we look at his production, it's been huge in the playoffs, but I think that's because of the inflated totals he's had playing against these defenses. Commanders, PFF rush defense, 29th, DVOA 26. Rams, 15th, PFF 21st DVOA. So they're not good teams against the run, and he's had great production. And you made my next line, when you take out his big plays, he's not averaging that much. He really is struggling. And we mentioned the offensive line injuries. Dickerson, Jurgens, Johnson, all banged up. And Barkley was on the sidelines with a massage gun working his calf. So he's not 100%. So when we look at how the Chiefs have consistently prevented running backs from eclipsing 100 yards, and Barkley struggles against top-rated defenses, this under makes all the sense to me in the world. And plus it's at 116.5.
So high.
I mean, this to me is, got to be one of the best player props to bet.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I'll be taking it. I took it last week, even kind of got lucky there because of the blowout, but it's just so high. And if they can just prevent him from getting a 50-plus yard touchdown, you have to like your chances.
But you take out the big run that we're talking about, Barkley's not there. If he doesn't have that explosive run, he's not anywhere near the total last game, and he's not going to be near the total this game. So,
yep.
Next bet, my friend.
Xavier Worthy. He's, like I said earlier, he is the number one chess piece for Andy Reid. And, he's a very big part of this game plan in the playoffs, as we've been able to see the first 2 weeks. And I think it's only going to continue from there. I think people who haven't watched a ton of Chiefs games this year might think he's just kind of a speedster, deep threat guy. But they're not using him in that role at all. He's being used at the line of scrimmage. He's being used in motion. He's being used in the backfield, and he's playing slot receiver. So in the first 3 drives versus the Bills, he had 4 targets and 2 rushing attempts. Like right off the bat, they want to get him the ball. They're going to find different creative ways to do it, whether it's moving him around in the backfield or not, which is why I like playing both the rush and the receiving, because we know that he has the ability to break something. If he's able to get around the edge, he can easily go for 20 yards. Gives you the option for either one of those outcomes happening. Another thing I really like for this is that Andy Reid loves to use non-running backs and pass catchers in carries in the playoffs. So I think it's been 9 straight playoffs now that a non-pass catcher has gotten a running play. So I'm expecting him to get at least one. I definitely like his straight rushing line as well. I think I saw it Monday morning on FanDuel at 3.5, and it went up to like 5.5, 6.5 within hours, but he should be getting at least 1 or 2 here. And, we saw against the Bills, I think he got a rush attempt just throwing it on that backwards pass there. So I really think they're going to be getting him involved. And again, the Eagles, you want to attack them up the middle of that field, and they're going to try and find ways to probably get Kelsey very involved in the game plan as well. But I think Worthy will be, if not the number 1, the number 2 option for it. So, and then I guess my other final piece with the rushing angle is like, they just have had the most stagnant running game ever that they've had. And the Eagles front line is as good as anyone at stopping the run. So I think Andy Reid's not really going to come in here and try and run the ball with Kareem Hunt, who can only get 3 yards. I think he's going to be using Worthy as an extension of that run game and trying to just be creative and get him out in space. So you never know. He breaks a really huge one. I think if you want like a crazy long shot MVP that's not Mahomes, he's worth taking a shot at because he has the explosion, and I think he'll be heavily involved.
So we got one comment here I wanted to get to. Pacheco doesn't look right. So that's kind of goes along with what you're saying with Pacheco not being 100%. Worthy, really electric with his speed and everything. And you mentioned it. Hunt just kind of falls forward for 3 yards.
Yeah, he's there for 3rd and 1, and that's it. They're just not going to be using him on
now. Hunt has scored a TD every single game in the playoffs he's played in.
Yeah, I think it's a good bet.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can get over plus 130. I would look at
it's his backfield. Pacheco's should not be seeing more than a few carries.
He like broke his leg. I don't even know why.
Yeah, he just doesn't look right since he came back, and the offensive line's been out of whack ever since they moved Tooney. He just can't find a groove, and I think Andy Reid knows better than to try and fix it. He's going to roll with the best product they have, and that's absolutely Kareem Hunt.
Now, you mentioned long shot MVPs, and this next player, I put in a long shot on him at 66-1. Give me Devontae Smith over 49.5 yards receiving. Spags. Number 1, we're taking away Saquon Barkley. Number 2, taking away A.J. Brown. And with what's been going on this playoffs, we're going to take away Dallas Goedert. That leaves Devontae Smith in insanely favorable matchups. He was 2nd on the team in receiving yards and receptions and 3rd in targets for the playoffs this year. That was kind of stood out to me that he's having that much involvement in the game when not really being his name being out there. For the season, 2nd in receiving yards, 2nd in targets, 2nd in receptions. But this is the thing that really stood out to me. Against the Spags defense, he's played 3 times. And this is what he's averaged. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 107 yards per game. In the Super Bowl 2 years ago, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 100 yards.
Yeah.
I think Smith is going to be a very big focal point of this attack. And I think I don't think Spags is saying on the top of the board, hey, we need to keep Devontae Smith in check. Brown's coming off a massive NFC championship game. Goddard has been huge, as you talked about, all playoffs. I think these factors, we're getting a little bit, we're getting Devontae Smith at 49.5 yards receiving. He played 13 regular season games this year. He went over this total on 9 of 13.
Mm-hmm. That's really good, Bob.
I think there's insane value here. And I mentioned it. I was looking at it. He's 66-1 to win MVP. Now, granted, it would have to be like 125 yards receiving, TDs for him to get it. But I could see it, just because for whatever reason, like the media has people they like and the people they don't like. For whatever reason, people don't like Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For whatever reason. If the Chiefs win it, we know Mahomes is getting the MVP. Mm-hmm. We just know it is. But the Eagles, people just don't like Hurts. Maybe like the media members, and I know this is a shitty reason to do it, but if Hurts, under 250 yards, Smith has 150 of them, I could see them giving it to Devontae Smith, man.
I completely agree. I think it's a good matchup for him too. You'll have Trent McDuffie out on A.J. Brown. The Chiefs have been very vulnerable in the slot in the middle of the field. So He's a very talented player. I've always been a huge fan of Smith. I think he could absolutely ball out, and you know he has the threat to break them too, which is what you need for that MVP.
Pat, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your schedule, coming on, talking a little shop. I always love it when I have a first-time guest on, and I look up, we've been going for 50 minutes. It seems like we've been talking for 10. So I really appreciate you doing this. I look forward to hopefully working with you again. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media, the content and stuff like you put out?
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Definitely. And I can't appreciate you enough for inviting me on here. I had such a blast doing this as a first time. And I'd love to definitely keep this going. You can follow me on X or Instagram at Pat's Picks AI on X and patspicks.ai on Instagram. I'll definitely have a lot of football and fantasy content on Instagram and on X, just kind of chopping it up and working through some player prop models for NFL, NBA, and some other sports that are coming up as well. So once the NFL season's over, I get a lot more time on my hands.
Yeah, and I'm kind of peer pressuring. I know we just met, but I was peer pressuring you before we started to start doing some baseball. So
yeah, we'll be getting there. We'll be getting to baseball.
But no, enjoyed this. Look forward to having you on again. We will be back next week with Dave Weaver from FanDuel TV. Make sure to check that out. Best of luck in your bets, and we will talk soon, my friend.
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys.